Good day, I'm Derek Fildebrandt, publisher of the Western Standard, and you are watching The Pipeline. Today on September 29th, 2021. Today we're going to be discussing a new poll out from Ecos showing Jason Kenney's approval of handling the COVID pandemic is not just the lowest in the country, but it is the lowest by many orders of magnitude. We're going to be discussing the growing resistance to vaccine passports. We've been covering many stories of individuals being told they can't go to their schools, people being removed from their jobs. We're going to talk about what that means with a real human face on it today. As well, we're going to talk about the launch of the Alberta Free Strategy Group, a new organization dedicated to Alberta seizing its sovereignty unilaterally while remaining within Canada. On a lot of interesting politics around that. So joining me today is Western Standard News editor Dave Naylor, who we now just have to call News Dave because there's too many Daves in the office.
Too many Daves. No more hiring of Daves.
Got 99 Daves and you ain't one. And also joined by Western Standard political columnist and host of the Corey Morgan Show, Corey Morgan.
Good afternoon.
So before we get started, I want to thank all of our Western Standard members for your continued generous support. If you're not yet a member of the Western Standard, please go to westernstandardonline.com. Click on membership. You can try it free for 15 days before you have to pay a penny. And even then, it's only $10 a month or $99 a year. The Western Standard refuses to accept the federal government's media bailout money. We rely upon advertisers and, most importantly, members like you to support the work we do and many other people on the Western Standard team to give you bailout-free Western media focused on the issues that we think are of interest to you. So let's get started today. Dave, pull out from Ecos. Not good news for Alberta Premier Jason Kenney.
Well, if he hasn't hit rock bottom, he's getting awfully close to it. Only 11% of Albertans agree with his handling of the COVID crisis. In the last couple of weeks, we've been seeing daily staggering death tolls, hospitals filled to overflowing, ICU units completely full. And this new poll shows by far Kenney's leadership is considered terrible by 89% of Albertans. Just to give you an example, the next lowest guy is Ontario Premier Doug Ford at, I think he was 28%. Frank Graves from Ecos says he's never seen anything like it. He's never seen a poll rating that low, the 11% figure. And he tweeted out a reminder that it was only a year ago Kenney had 80% support. So it is a terrible, terrible plunge for he and his party over the last year, Derek.
I can't, so what is it, 80... what is it, 89? 89, yeah. 89% disapprove. I can't think of 89% of Albertans agreeing on anything, but 89% of Albertans disapproving of the Premier's handling of COVID. Corey, I mean, the legacy media generally say that that's all because they strongly imply or at least skirt over the fact that there's very different reasons for people to disapprove of why this is. There is kind of the leftist political parties, the NDP, and the media's perspective that he just hasn't done enough. Then there's a completely other side of it that the polling we've commissioned in the past on this is pretty much evenly split with that side, which is the side that believes that Kenney has gone too far in restrictions, too far in doing things that damage fundamental liberties. That side has been nearly equal, normally within 2-3 points of the pro-lockdown side. And this anti-lockdown side, they're coming overwhelmingly from people who cast votes for Jason Kenney in the last election. This one seems to be a bit different. The hospitals are facing a capacity crisis. But I think it's fair to criticize that even if you're an anti-lockdown, on the anti-lockdown side, the anti-vaccine passport side, I think there's still a lot of critics of how the hospitals are overflowing right now. Alberta's our ICU capacity is strangely low for a province our size, for a province that has the most expensive healthcare system on the continent. I'm not sure about the planet, but certainly the most expensive on the continent. Yet we can't handle a surge of a couple hundred patients when we're 18, 19 months into this and have put untold dollars into expanding this. Do you think is there a road out of this for Kenney?
No, resign. Seriously, this is enough. The bottom line is, he looks out of control. Whether you're for lockdowns and restrictions or whether you're against them, he's constantly been reactive or hiding, and just nobody is confident in what he's going to do or where he's going, and that's what people are looking for. I think even some, pro-restriction people, if they could feel confidence in his appearances and coming out, they would still be okay hanging off a little longer. Or the anti-restriction ones, if he could present himself saying, look, this is a plan, this is solid, this is where we're going, they could get on. Like, this is an approval rating with him and his handling of it. And people just do not feel confidence whatsoever that he's managing this well at all. Not to mention, whether it's COVID related or not, but his own party is a complete hornet's nest right now. He's getting his legs cut out from his own provincial board, from his own MLAs. And people right now, when we do have a crisis going on, whatever they feel the best solution to it might be, need to see leadership. And they are not seeing it. And they feel scared and underconfident. So I don't see him pulling out of this at all.
I think a lot of it, Corey, goes back to when he went missing for those 2 to 3 weeks. He won't address rumors that he was in Europe, saying what he does on his private time is just that, private. But it was like a sense of fiddling while Rome burned. You could see this crisis coming from a mile away, and there was radio silence from the Alberta government. Even last week, Kenney disappeared for 5 days, and nothing was heard from him, even though we were getting death tolls in the 20s and daily death tolls, and and the hospitals were being overrun. So I think the average Albertan just gets a sense that things are out of control and there's no one at the helm.
I'm sure there's a lot of sympathy for Jason Kenney's assertion that his private time is his, unless you happen to be unvaccinated. Then the government gets to tell you what you get to do with your private time in Alberta now.
Yeah, there's just no, you can pick at him from every direction he comes at with it. And in vanishing for 3 weeks, I mean, those of us who are in the political know exactly what was up. They wanted to keep him in hiding for the federal election for the sake of O'Toole. We're in the middle of a crisis, a real problem in Alberta, and they're playing political games, which again is another portion of that slice of people who have lost confidence. Plus, there's no second in command. He doesn't delegate to anybody. Was there another person who would come forth then and fill the void while he was gone for 3 weeks? No, apparently he can't trust anybody to do that. So we were just kind of stuck in an information void for weeks. It's just been, and again, as I wrote regretfully, I mean, I like Jason Kenney. I really wanted him to do well, but this just fell apart. It's gotten away from him.
Well, speaking of trying to help out O'Toole, I think it was yesterday that Jason Kenney threw his support behind O'Toole staying as Tory leader.
Yeah, my mom says it's the kiss of death for O'Toole, the way Kenney's luck has been going lately. Flashback to when O'Toole was running for the leadership, Jason Kenney was one of his most prominent supporters when he came out and endorsed him. So probably really no great surprise that last night during a press conference, he urged Conservatives to stick behind stick behind O'Toole. Says parties lose credibility if they have a revolving door policy of leaders, and reminded everybody that Stephen Harper was defeated in an election and went on to be a fairly stable prime minister for a decade. So O'Toole is still has Kenney in his corner.
Surely there's no self-serving argument about the need to project stability and not change your leaders. That changing leaders is a bad thing in general for Conservatives. Surely that's not the case.
There might be a little bit of a common interest in fostering that attitude among people right now.
I think it's fair to say, it's impossible to measure, but Kenney's endorsement of O'Toole was a significant moment in helping O'Toole grasp the true blue, I'm the right-wing Conservative mantle when he was running for Conservative leader a little over a year ago. O'Toole's jettisoned all of those major policies, running. I think O'Toole essentially ran a 2015 Trudeau campaign. He's just just one election cycle behind the Liberals at this point. But I think it's fair to say Kenney's endorsement of O'Toole helped in the leadership when he was running last time. Do you think Kenney's endorsement of O'Toole remaining has got any benefit whatsoever at this point?
Not right now. I mean, again, Premier Kenney's brand is toxic. I don't think O'Toole necessarily needs or wants him coming out, but as you said, there might be an interest in just trying to build an atmosphere of stability for leaders at this point. I don't think O'Toole's position, as Dave was saying, is nearly as tenuous as Jason Kenney's, though. I mean, if he can get through this, perhaps, it can be like with Stephen Harper, eventually he'll get over the hump. But Kenney, he's got enough problems going on. He shouldn't even be talking about federal politics right now.
Yeah, I think this was, I think you hit the nail on the head there, that this actually had nothing to do with O'Toole saying he supports O'Toole. This was just in general trying to calm down conservatives who smell blood in the water and want some change at the top right now. And I think he's just trying to portray that the need for everybody should just keep their jobs right now. It's almost like he's trying to unionize conservative leaders right now. Just doesn't. We're all keeping our jobs, and that's that. Well, let's turn our attention to some of the stories that we've been breaking here, and Dave's been leading on the news division. I'll let you pick which ones you want to get into, but we've had a lot of people reach out to us with their individual stories about what vaccine passports are doing to them. Students being forced to drop out of school or are just not allowed to go around the campus. They have to sit and watch everything on a computer where other people get to go to campus. People in their jobs losing them. Maybe we'll start with two in the healthcare system. We had stories on both a paramedic and a doctor.
Yeah, it's certainly a growing question for various different sectors. We had a story on 3,500 healthcare workers, from doctors to paramedics to nurses, sending AHS a letter saying, what's going on with this COVID mandatory vaccines? They're all going to lose their jobs if they don't get vaccinated by October 31st. So you've got the healthcare workers who are upset. City workers, hundreds of them, penned a letter to city manager David Duckworth this week. Firefighters, EMS paramedics, police officers, other frontline city workers, they're worried about it too. Thousands of students, university students, are working with a constitutional lawyer in Calgary, and they're set to sue. The JCCF says they're going to back Dr. Eric Payne, who
is the JCCF for people who don't study Western Standard acronyms?
Exactly. Oh, I'm sorry. The Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms.
That's right.
They vow to protect any doctor or stand up for any doctor who loses their job because they refuse to get vaccinated. Just today, the RCMP union said they would back officers who choose not to get vaccinated. Yesterday, Prime Minister Trudeau talked again about the importance of getting all federal employees vaccinated and getting vaccine passports for train and air travel. But he didn't mention a firm date on when all this has to be done by. So you've got all sorts of different groups, students, doctors, firefighters, all getting together saying, stop. This is unconstitutional. This is against the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. What you're doing. Geez, the only one going to get out of this anything is lawyers, because they're going to get rich for years fighting all these COVID lawsuits when they get to court.
Corey, resistance from unions and students. Are we talking about an NDP movement here? Like, these are not traditionally right-wing libertarian F the government groups. We're talking about union members themselves. Now, disproportionately, it seems to be more the firefighters and police officers tend not always to be the socialists. Don't often share the socialist views of other unions. The more NDP affiliated ones, but we're seeing unions, students in very significant numbers on this. Is this a problem for governments that? Because right now until now it's been the unvaccinated are a faceless nobody. They're not people. They're a statistic, and there's not really been a human face on it. now with a lot of the stories that we're doing right now, there's a human face on it. These are individual people. These are not some yahoos. These are just people who made an individual choice, and they're now having their lives destroyed for it. Do you think this is going to have really any effect on the law going forward?
Yes. They got a real problem. I was wondering when organized labor was going to catch up with this. We had this happen actually a few years ago, I believe a couple of years ago in Ontario. The teachers union fought against vaccinations mandatory for nurses back then. Now that wasn't in the midst of a pandemic at that time, but they won. You can't force medication upon employees. And the unions, as much as they were on board at first and all saying we got to force this down, when they start looking at the reality, and the reality is there's perhaps, let's just throw it out there, 10% of people feel that these vaccines are going to hurt them. And I don't want to get into the debate of whether they will or not. These 10% though are confident of that. And when you feel that an injection is going to make you sick or kill you or harm you or damage you, nothing on earth is going to make you take that. So you will quit your job before you will do that. I mean, what job would somebody keep if they thought they were going to be paralyzed or killed or something by a medication? Now, you think of a union and how haywire they'll go if you even propose a public sector union a 3% wage cut. They're willing to go and take everybody out on strike. Well, we're talking possibly 10% of their workforce losing their jobs. And if a union doesn't stand up for that 10%, they are worth their salt as a union. I mean, what are they there for then? Mm-hmm. So this is a big problem, a very big problem. And I'm not sure how they're going to deal with it because that's tens, say 10%, even 5%, that's thousands of essential workers. These are in the healthcare system. These are firefighters. These are emergency services. When they say, oh, who cares about a few people in the hospitality industry or some cab drivers or private sector people, which still is a crisis, they got a much bigger one when we start losing in an already a labor crisis, start losing these people because of this vaccine standoff. They're going to have to do something about this.
Corey, I got a letter today from an elderly gentleman who had read my exclusive on a University of Alberta public health professor who was saying that it's the vaccinated that are currently leading the crisis, and they're getting infected more than the unvaccinated with this Delta variant. And he basically said he's confused. He doesn't know what to do. He says he's had a heart attack, and he is convinced if he gets vaccinated, he's going to get blood clot and it will kill him. He asked me what he should do, and I said, sir, I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to give you medical advice. I can only suggest you go and have a long talk with your family doctor and get his input on it. But this is the choice that people are being given. You can either be segregated from society for taking something that might harm you, or go and get vaccinated. It's going to be a tough call for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think some of our readers are pretty much unanimous against vaccine passports. I think that's fair to say. Where people stand on vaccines themselves, I think our readers are a bit more divided. And the Western Standard we're not a medical journal. I don't know anything about medicine, so I talk to my doctor. And unless my doctor sounds insane, I generally do what he tells me to do, as long as it doesn't involve too much sacrifice on my part. So we've published from doctors and governments that are pro-vaccine. The piece that you ran on the University of Alberta, public health professor. Many people in his field seem to disagree with that, but we felt it was important. He's not just Karen learning on learning on YouTube videos. This is a credible, serious individual, and we made a decision that the Western Standard is here to facilitate credible debate on the issue. We're not going to publish medical advice on really any topic from Joe Blow with who can watch YouTube. I encourage everyone to do their own research, but in terms of what we're publishing, we're going to publish credible arguments from both sides of this, and we'll let the medical professionals debate it out. And then at the end of the day, people need to make up their own mind, make their own decisions based on what they think is the best argument.
Absolutely.
Well, let's turn to something a little more fun. An organization calling itself the Alberta Free Strategy Group launched yesterday. It's making some waves. Why don't you tell us about it, Dave?
Sure. First of all, I hate the name because I can never pronounce strategy.
Just say AB Free.
AB Free. It's like Massachusetts. I can never pronounce
Massachusetts.
So it's a tough word. Anyways, this group was launched yesterday. It's fronted by three people. Rob Anderson, former Airdrie MLA, UFC political scientist Barry Cooper, and constitutional lawyer David Frum.
Derek from.
Derek Frum, I'm sorry.
I saw in your notes you had that wrong, but I didn't know how I was going to change that for you.
Yeah, see, I've got David on the mind. Too many Daves.
Too many damned. I got 99 Daves.
I know.
These are the Daves I know.
These are the Daves I know,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyways, the group basically wants what the Fair Deal panel suggested all that long time ago. They want
The
Alberta...
firewall letter, you mean?
Yeah. They want Alberta to get sovereignty over decision-making, much like Quebec has. Anderson told me yesterday in an interview, yeah, we just want what Quebec already has. So he's talking about a provincial police force, a pension plan, and an end to equalization, which will sound good to many people. Alberta having the power to appoint its own justices, excuse me, in court. So it's basically a continuation of what the Fair Deal panel wanted. They're going to go across Alberta and hold town hall meetings to encourage debate. But Anderson stressed yesterday that it's not about separatism at the moment. He says it's too early to be talking about separatism, but we can't take it off the table. He was very clear. It has to be part of all negotiations with Canada. He says right now the government is basically actively trying to screw over Alberta. So it's time for Alberta to stand up for itself. Sort of a new political movement in the province started yesterday.
So I think your summary was pretty good, but I think where they really part way with the Fair Deal panel or even the previous firewall letter 20 years ago is essentially what they're proposing is nullification. And nullification was a part of the early United States Constitution. The Supreme Court in the United States essentially killed it in the post-Civil War era. But nullification is the right of the states to essentially cancel the enforcement of federal laws within their state. And that was a prominent and important part of the American federal system before the Civil War. A positive example of it was federal laws requiring free states in the North to return captured slaves back to their owners in the South. Northern states would invoke nullification and just simply not enforce a federal law within their state. And what the Alberta Free Strategy group is proposing is essentially that Alberta should just start doing that. That Alberta would pass, that the legislature would pass an Alberta Sovereignty Act, giving the legislature and the government the right to essentially strike down federal law within Alberta, essentially just not to enforce federal law here. That is a bold strategy. I'm going to have to dive a bit deeper into this. I'm probably going to want to talk to guys like Barry Cooper. Barry Cooper might be very much on the right and Alberta sovereignty side of things, but he's not a kook who just kind of cooks this stuff up. So we're gonna have to dive a bit deeper, I think, into how that would work, because arguably it's an act of revolution to just simply say we're not enforcing federal law. That's period. To some extent, that's already been done in Canada. For a long time, British Columbia did not enforce the federal prohibition against marijuana. It can be illegal federally, and BC just said, yeah, we don't care. No one's going to jail. We've ordered the police, and the Attorney General has ordered prosecutors not to prosecute people for small possession of marijuana. There is some smaller precedence of this, but they're also talking about applying it in the fiscal arena, that Alberta will collect its own taxes. And that somehow they're going to take back, I'm not sure how this would work, maybe you know, Corey, but somehow they're going to use the concept of an Alberta Revenue Agency collecting our own revenue to take back federal money that's being put towards things like equalization and other transfers. I don't know, how feasible is that to do without, leaving Canada?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that one. I'll try and ask, I'm going to talk to Derek about that a little later too, and see about the logistics of that, because I know people have talked a lot about like the Quebec system where they collect the provincial tax separately from the federal, but people do get confused. They aren't collecting everything. They just collect their provincial portion on their own, and you're just filling out 2 forms and sending out 2 checks, basically.
Yeah.
It gives you a piece of, distances yourself from that federal, lump sum, I guess you could say, but it doesn't really accomplish a heck of a lot. If they're talking about intercepting the Alberta dollars before they even get to Ottawa, hey, I'm all for it. I'm just not sure how they can pull it off.
I have this image of sending cowboys to rob the federal stagecoach, which has got a big treasury box of equalization dollars, just riding east through Saskatchewan all the way to Ottawa, and we're just sending cowboys out to rob it, but because it's already our money, but we're taking it back. I don't know how they plan to make that work. I think that's going to be an interesting piece for your interview with Derek Fromm. We should see if we can get Barry Cooper in as well if it's not too late. I don't know how they're going to make that work, because I know a lot of the people involved in this, I think they're kind of on the independence train, but they understand that a majority of Albertans are not yet there. A very significant minority of Albertans have consistently in polls in the last 2 years shown a support for independence, but it's as significant as that minority is, it's still a minority, and I think what they're trying to do is plot a strategy that's got a bit more broad political buy-in that gives us independence without declaring independence. The maple leaf could still fly over a government building, but nothing's inside.
With some of the aspects, at least, they're being more bold and just outright saying, let's do it. Instead of Kenney, who's been pissing around for 2 years on this Fair Deal panel and still hasn't done a bloody thing, which is another area that's annoyed a lot of Albertans. He's saying, let's do it. Pension plan. We can do it. Quebec's doing it. It's not out of bounds. Let's just get on with it. Same with the provincial police force. No more talk, no more studies, no more committees. Let's do it. That attitude I like coming out of them. As you said, that fiscal collection one seems a little more complicated. But there's a lot of this ground is well trodden already. I believe, was Cooper one of the signatories of the original Alberta agenda? I know there was Crooks and a few other political scientists back then.
Flanagan.
But either way, most of those aspects have been studied to death, as far as I'm concerned. They're 20 years old now. We can do it. We just need the will to do it. And maybe these guys will prod a little bit of that will out of the provincial government that really talks big and cowers when it comes to standing up to Ottawa.
I just want to say Rob Anderson wrote as an exclusive column that's on the website outlining his plans and reasons for what he's doing. So I encourage everyone to go online at westernstandardonline.com and read Anderson for himself.
It's I think it's a plan that would probably have a reasonable degree of broad buy-in in Alberta, but there's a lot of talk now that the equalization referendum scheduled for October 18th is actually in jeopardy of losing now because many Albertans are so white-hot angry with Alberta Premier Jason Kenney that they're going to take the referendum as their opportunity to shove it in his face and vote against him. I think it would be somewhat akin, although to a lesser extent, with the Olympic referendum in Calgary. That was narrowly, but it was defeated by a fair margin, but it was still fairly close, roughly 55-45 in that neighborhood. My gut tells me that would have passed, except Nenshi made himself the face of that campaign, and it became a way for people to voice their displeasure with Nenshi. And I think there is a very real risk that this referendum now, at the very least, it's not going to get a straight up or down, yes or no, depending on how people feel about equalization, that it would have, say, a year or 2 years ago. At best, it'll probably now pass, slimly. But it could even be outright defeated at this point. So I think it goes without saying that there's a 0% chance, even if Kenney believed in the Alberta Free Strategy, which I don't think he does, but even if he did believe it, there's no way in hell he could do it right now. He has no political capital left to do anything. He is 100% COVID all the time, and he is failing at that even. So he certainly can't take on any grand political schemes like this.
You'd think a year ago it would have been 99% against equalization. Well, now I think you're right. It's going to be a lot closer just because of hatred for Kenney.
Well, and some of this timing couldn't be worse. Again, it's Kenney's bloody luck with everything he touched turning to crap. But when we're in a state where we're actually talking about how, Trudeau is happily standing up there saying how he's going to extend that hand and help out Albertans, and Kenney's talking about how we might be utilizing American hospital facilities for the overflow that's happening over here. It's not the best atmosphere for a bunch of people to say this is when we want to become introverted and stop participating in a broader economy with other parts of the country. It just couldn't possibly be any worse.
If it looks like this is going to lose, and I am positive the Tories have pulled on this, but if it looks like the Tories are going to lose, is there a chance Kenney could actually pull this referendum? Because it's a separate ballot, you don't have to throw away all the other ballots for municipal election and Senate election. If it looks like he's going to lose, do you think, I'm going to ask the same question I think to both of you, do you think there's a chance he pulls this? Because if it is a defeat, or even if it's frankly not a significantly large margin of victory, that is first, it is a political disaster for Jason Kenney, and second of all, it is a political disaster for Alberta. I mean, if Albertans have voted against changing equalization for whatever reason, those who support equalization, of which there is a minority, and people who just were angry at Kenney, this will massively weaken Alberta's hand within Canada. Anytime we're not happy with money leaving Alberta, going to Ottawa, going to Quebec, going to Atlantic, they can turn around and throw it back in our face and say, well, you guys had a vote on this, kicked up a big fuss, and guess what? You voted to keep it. Shut up. Do you think there's a chance Kenney ends up pulling this if it looks like it's not going to go well?
I can't see it. We're only 3 weeks away from the vote. What excuse would he have to pull it? I still think it'll probably, more people are against equalization than for it. But I agree with you, Derek, that it's going to be closer than it should have been.
Corey?
I don't put anything beyond them. The world's gone so bloody upside down this last year, but I mean, it would completely undercut the entire purpose of having a referendum if the government doesn't like the way it's going and then yanks it out before we get to that date. And as I guess as poor as Jason Kenney's political instincts have been, I don't think he'd be foolish enough to pull something like that when it's that close to the date.
If he was to, I lean that way, that it would just look too god-awful to do. But if he did it, I think his excuse will go something like this. I'm focused on COVID, and that is the only priority of this government right now. Reforming equalization and getting a fair deal is still important to me, and I'm going to still fight for it. But right now is not the time to pick a fight with the rest of the country. We need to be focused on COVID. So we're going to postpone this vote until you vote for me again and re-elect me to power.
Well, that would mean he'd have to pull the daylight savings time one too, right?
And the fluoride maybe from the city or push for that. And
Well, that's a municipal
Paul
referendum.
Hinman, on the other hand, would be doing cartwheels because everybody who's regionally upset right now would say, okay, that's the final straw. I'm done with the UCP and off to the Wild Rose Independence Party.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're going to wrap it up there today. Once again, I want to thank all of our Western Standard members for your generous continued support. If you're not yet a member of the Western Standard, you can try it free for 15 days. Go to westernstandardonline.com, click on membership, sign up, and if you like it after 15 days, it's only $10 a month or $99 for the entire year. We rely upon individuals signing up to support the Western Standard with their memberships to give you full access to all Western Standard content. We rely upon you so that we don't have to accept the federal government's media bailout money. Thank you very much, Dave.
Thank you.
Dave number 8 and Corey number 1.
No. I'm always Dave number 1.
You were Dave. I guess
I was Dave number 1.
You were Dave number 1.
Yes, thank you.
I suppose. You joined us in the first week that the Western Standard was around.
Yep.
So, okay. Thank you very much. The reason I know that actually is because I'm writing kind of a 2-year history. We're coming up on our 2nd anniversary of the Western
second
Standard.
anniversary. What do you get somebody on the 2nd anniversary?
I'll probably buy the staff a beer.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
There is a first time for everything.
You know that's a lie. You know I bought you a beer. Okay, no beer for you. If I can't get no respect. If I don't get any respect for the beers I bought you, then no more beers. You're cut off.
Well, then no more stories.
You heard it here. Western Standard's closing just in advance of our 2-year anniversary. Thank you very much for joining us, folks. Have a good day and God bless.